Nora stepped carefully onto the surface of Vera. The planet was not like Earth. The sky glowed in soft shades of green and gold, and the wind carried a faint hum, like the planet itself was alive. She adjusted her helmet and checked her instruments. The human colony lay in the distance, small and quiet, a cluster of silver structures reflecting the strange light. Beyond it, the land stretched endlessly, barren in some places and dotted with jagged rocks in others. It was beautiful, but it felt dangerous. Nora had been chosen for this mission because she was skilled, brave, and curious. She was an engineer, trained to understand alien technology, and today she was sent to inspect a research outpost left abandoned decades ago. The colony's historians had recovered fragments of its logs, but most of the outpost's purpose remained a mystery. Some said the aliens who built it had left suddenly. Others believed they had vanished because of a threat no one could face. Whatever the truth, the outpost stood waiting, silent, and Nora was ready to find answers. As she walked across the rocky terrain, her boots crunching on the red sand, she felt a shiver run down her spine. The wind carried no scent, but it made the air feel heavy. Her instruments detected no movement except her own. Yet she could not shake the feeling that she was being watched. She tried to focus on the task. "Nora," she whispered to herself, "stay calm. Just a routine inspection, nothing else." The outpost appeared at the top of a small hill. It was larger than she expected. Its walls shimmered faintly, made of a metal that looked older than anything humans had ever seen. Strange symbols were etched into its surface, glowing softly with a light that seemed alive. She paused for a moment to observe it, studying the patterns. They shifted slightly as if reacting to her presence. A flicker of curiosity and fear passed through her mind. The technology here was beyond anything humans had encountered. Nora approached the entrance. The doors were sealed, but her portable interface unlocked them with a series of careful gestures. The door slid open silently, revealing a corridor bathed in a soft bluish light. She stepped inside, her heart beating faster. The air smelled faintly metallic, clean yet unfamiliar. She ran a quick scan. There was no life form detected. Just empty hallways and silent machines. "Hello?" she called softly. Her voice echoed, but no answer came. Still, she felt it. A presence. Something or someone was here. At first, she thought it was her imagination. Then she heard it, a faint sound, soft, deliberate. Step by step. Somewhere ahead, someone or something was moving closer. Nora froze. She could not see anything, but the sound of the footsteps matched hers. Every time she moved, the steps paused, and when she stopped, they continued. She swallowed hard, trying not to panic. "It's probably some security system," she said, though even she did not fully believe it. She took another step, slow and careful, listening. The sound grew clearer, closer, matching her pace exactly. She rounded a corner and entered a large chamber. It was circular, with a high ceiling that seemed to vanish into darkness. At the center, a pedestal glowed softly. Around it, consoles and screens flickered with alien symbols. Nora approached, trying to ignore the footsteps that followed her every move. Her fingers brushed over the controls. The technology was sophisticated, responsive, almost alive. Data flowed across the screens, showing diagrams, measurements, and unknown energy patterns. She felt awe and fear in equal measure, then she noticed it. A shadow or perhaps a figure at the edge of the room. She could not see clearly. The air shimmered slightly where it stood. It did not speak. It did not move toward her aggressively, yet she could feel its focus. It was studying her, examining her. Step by step, it drew closer, as if it had been waiting for someone like her. Nora took a careful breath. Her training told her to stay calm, to observe, not react. The figure's movement was slow but deliberate. There was no sound other than the faint echo of her own boots. The presence seemed to fill the room, pressing at her mind gently but insistently. Fear gripped her, but curiosity was stronger. She could feel that this being was not hostile, at least not in the way humans expected. Its attention was intense, intelligent, and somehow patient. Nora began to explore the room while keeping her eyes on the edge of her vision. Consoles revealed information about energy fields, planet mapping, and biological experiments. She realized that the aliens had not been hostile. They had been scientists, studying the planet and perhaps trying to communicate with something beyond their understanding. This realization made her heart pound with excitement. The outpost was not abandoned out of fear, but perhaps because it had fulfilled its purpose. As she moved closer to the central pedestal, The figure came closer as well. Step by step, inch by inch, Nora felt a strange connection forming. It was as if the presence could sense her thoughts, her intentions. She stopped for a moment and reached out a hand, not expecting to touch anything tangible. The air shimmered, and for a brief instant she felt a warmth, a gentle pressure, almost like a hand meeting hers. She gasped softly and pulled back, her mind racing. "What are you?" she whispered. The response came not as a sound but as a feeling. A memory flashed in her mind. Visions of a civilization long gone, of cities that floated above the planet, of beings who walked among stars, learning and creating. The presence was trying to show her its history, its purpose. Nora's fear began to fade, replaced by awe and wonder. She realized she was not alone. She had not come to a dead place, but to a living memory, preserved in a form she could barely comprehend. Step by step, the presence approached until there was almost no space between them. Nora could feel the energy of it surrounding her, but it did not harm her. Instead, it seemed to wait patiently for her next action. She could sense that it wanted to communicate, to share knowledge. She took a careful breath and extended her hand again. This time she felt more than warmth. She felt understanding. A bridge of thought formed between them, silent and unspoken. Her mind filled with images of the alien scientists, their work, and their hopes for the planet. She understood their curiosity, their desire to explore, to connect with life beyond themselves. Nora felt a deep respect for these beings and a responsibility to continue their work. The presence was not just a guardian. It was a teacher, a guide, and perhaps a friend. For the first time, Nora allowed herself to relax completely. She knew that the outpost held secrets that could change humanity's understanding of the universe. She knew that, step by step, she had come closer not just to the presence, but to a new way of seeing, a new way of being. She could feel the connection deepening, a silent bond forming that transcended words. The room seemed to hum softly, the consoles glowing brighter, the air vibrating with energy. Nora smiled, realizing that she was witnessing something extraordinary. She was not just exploring a forgotten outpost. She was standing at the threshold of a new understanding, and the presence, this being of light and thought, was walking with her step by step, toward something greater than either of them could yet imagine. Nora took one final step toward the pedestal. The presence mirrored her perfectly, as if every movement was shared, every thought reflected. The air between them vanished. She felt it then, fully and completely, a sense of unity, of awareness, of connection that stretched beyond the room, beyond the planet, perhaps beyond the stars themselves. She whispered softly, "I see you." And for the first time she felt a response that was not just a presence, but a conscious acknowledgement. Step by step they had come together. The journey was just beginning. Nora stood in the central chamber, her hand still hovering over the glowing pedestal. The presence had settled around her, like a gentle pressure in the air. She could feel it observing, analyzing, trying to understand her in ways she could not fully comprehend. The energy was calm, but it carried a weight, an intelligence that demanded respect. She took a careful step back and glanced at the consoles around the room. They flickered with symbols she could not read, but the patterns were clear and organized. This place had been built with purpose. Curiosity overcame fear. Nora moved closer to the pedestal and activated a console. Holographic panels rose into the air, displaying images, symbols, and recordings. She saw images of beings unlike anything she had ever encountered. They were humanoid in form, with elongated limbs and bright, intelligent eyes. Their movements were fluid, precise, and purposeful. Some images showed them interacting with strange machines that hovered above the ground, while others depicted vast cities that seemed to float above the planet. As she examined the holograms, she noticed movement at the edge of her vision. The presence, the being that had followed her here, had taken form. It was faint at first, a shimmer of light and energy, but now it was clearer. A humanoid figure, tall and elegant, with features that seemed to shift subtly. It did not speak, yet Nora could feel its awareness. Its movements were slow, deliberate, almost cautious. The being stepped closer, not aggressively, but with purpose. Every step it took matched her own movements perfectly. When she tilted her head to observe a hologram, it tilted in the same direction. When she took a step toward a console, it moved as well, always matching, always observing. Fear rose in her chest, but it was mixed with fascination. This was unlike any encounter she had ever imagined. Nora realized that this being, whom she silently named Aya, was not a threat. It was curious, intelligent, and patient. Step by step it approached her, but it waited for her consent, waiting for her to acknowledge its presence. She reached out her hand, and for a brief moment the air shimmered around her fingers. It was a contact of sorts, not physical but more profound. She could feel a connection forming, as if their thoughts and intentions were beginning to align. Aya moved closer, and suddenly, Nora understood that the being had been observing the outpost for decades. It had waited for someone capable of comprehending the technology and understanding its purpose. The outpost had not been abandoned out of fear, but as a test. It was designed to seek someone who could bridge the gap between species, someone who could learn, understand, and share knowledge. Nora's mind raced with questions. She wanted to speak, to ask about the aliens who had built this place, about their intentions, their discoveries, and their fate. But words seemed unnecessary. Aya communicated without sound, projecting images, emotions, and memories directly into her mind. She saw glimpses of the planet long before humans arrived, covered in forests and rivers, filled with strange creatures and vibrant life. She saw the aliens working tirelessly, mapping the stars, experimenting with energy, and striving to understand the universe. Step by step, the bond between them strengthened. Nora felt a mix of awe and humility. She realized that humans, despite their achievements, were still learning, still discovering their place in the galaxy. Aya seemed to sense her thoughts, her curiosity, her desire to learn. It mirrored her movements perfectly, symbolizing trust and recognition. Every action she took was reflected, every hesitation met with patience. Nora explored further, guided by Aya's silent presence. She discovered rooms filled with technology that defied her understanding. Devices that manipulated energy, holographic projectors that displayed star systems in real time, and biological chambers that preserved samples of the planet's flora and fauna. Each discovery filled her with excitement and a sense of responsibility. This knowledge was not meant to be hoarded, but shared, studied, and respected. Aya showed her more than technology. It projected visions of the aliens' interactions with the planet. They were gentle and thoughtful, observing without causing harm, experimenting without destroying. Nora could feel their respect for life, their curiosity, and their patience. It was clear that these beings had achieved a level of understanding far beyond humans, yet they were also limited by time and circumstance. The presence of Aya was their legacy, a way to continue their work through someone capable of learning. Nora moved toward a central console that displayed a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Stars, planets, and energy flows were shown in intricate detail. She realized that the aliens had been studying the universe itself, searching for patterns, connections, and threats. Aya projected a series of images showing anomalies, disturbances in space-time, and energy waves that could disrupt entire civilizations. The implications were staggering. Humans were not alone in the universe, and there were forces they had yet to understand. Step by step, Aya guided her through the data. It was as if the being wanted her to see, to comprehend, and to prepare. Nora realized that this was not merely an encounter but a partnership. Aya had chosen her because she possessed qualities the being recognized: curiosity, courage, and the capacity to learn. The connection between them deepened with each shared vision, each mirrored movement. Nora paused, overwhelmed by the knowledge and the presence beside her. She could feel Aya's awareness like a steady pulse, synchronized with her own heartbeat. The being did not dominate or control. It shared and guided. She realized that trust was being formed, a silent agreement between human and alien intelligence. Step by step, they were becoming more than observer and guide. They were companions in discovery. As she absorbed the data, Nora noticed a pattern in Aya's movements. The being seemed to respond to her emotions, adjusting its presence according to her reactions. When she hesitated, it slowed. When she leaned in with curiosity, it mirrored her interest. She realized that Aya was teaching her, not just showing data, but helping her understand, interpret, and connect. This was more than technology. It was a dialogue of minds, a lesson in perception and empathy. Hours passed, though Nora could not tell by looking at the artificial lighting. Time seemed irrelevant in the chamber. Every step she took, Aya followed, perfectly synchronized. The bond was growing, and with it, Nora's understanding of the alien civilization and their work expanded. She felt an extraordinary sense of purpose. This was not just an exploration. It was a chance to become part of something greater than herself, a bridge between humanity and a civilization she could barely imagine. Nora finally approached a large holographic sphere at the center of the room. It displayed the planet Vera in incredible detail. Mountains, rivers, forests, and cities long vanished were visible in a rotating projection. Aya's presence hovered beside the sphere, shifting and shimmering as if approving her focus. Nora extended her hand toward the hologram, and the sphere responded, rotating and zooming as she moved. Step by step, she realized that she was learning to interact with the alien technology, guided by Aya's silent instruction. Through this interaction, Nora understood a crucial truth. Aya was not merely a guardian or observer. It was a teacher, a bridge, and a legacy of the aliens who had built the outpost. Step by step, it had been waiting for someone capable of understanding, someone human, to continue the work that the original builders could not finish. She felt the weight of responsibility, but also the thrill of possibility. The presence of Aya grew warmer in her awareness, not in temperature, but in energy and intent. She felt encouragement, patience, and recognition. The being was not just observing, it was welcoming her into its knowledge and experience. Nora realized that the steps they took together, mirrored in movement and thought, symbolized something far deeper than proximity. They were forming a partnership of trust, understanding, and shared purpose. For the first time, Nora allowed herself to feel a sense of wonder, without fear. She stepped closer to Aya, and the being mirrored her exactly until there was almost no space between them. She could feel its awareness surrounding her, yet it did not overwhelm. It was balanced, calm, and deliberate. In that moment, she understood that the presence had chosen to recognize her as a companion. A partner in discovery, Nora whispered softly. I understand now. Aya's form shimmered in acknowledgement, a silent affirmation of connection. Step by step, they had moved from strangers to allies. The outpost, once abandoned and silent, was alive again, not just with energy, but with shared understanding. Nora knew that this was only the beginning. There were questions to answer, knowledge to uncover, and a bond to strengthen. The chamber hummed softly, alive with the presence of Aya and the curiosity of Nora. Step by step, they had come together, not as human and alien, but as minds seeking understanding, as explorers of the unknown, as companions on the threshold of discovery. And as Nora prepared to delve deeper into the mysteries of the outpost, she knew that the presence beside her was no longer a distant observer. It was a guide, a teacher, and perhaps the first true friend she had ever met in the vast reaches of space. Nora took a deep breath and stepped closer to Aya. The presence shimmered in the soft blue light of the outpost chamber, its form elegant and fluid. For the first time, Nora felt as if she could understand the being not just with her mind, but with her heart. The steps that had once made her uneasy were now familiar, almost comforting. Aya moved with her, mirroring her actions, step by step, until the space between them vanished completely. She reached out a hand again, letting it hover near the glowing energy that made up Aya's form. This time, there was no hesitation, no fear. She felt warmth, a pulse of awareness that was more than light or energy. It was understanding. The presence was responding to her intent, to her desire to learn and connect. For the first time, Nora realized that Aya was capable of communicating on a level humans had never experienced. It could share thoughts, emotions, and memories directly. Nora's curiosity surged. She wanted to know why the aliens had built the outpost, what their purpose had been, and what secrets it held. Aya seemed to sense her thoughts. A vision appeared. In her mind, not through words, but as a series of images and feelings. She saw the alien civilization as it had once been. Vast cities that floated above the planet. Networks of knowledge linking every structure. Beings who studied the universe with care and patience. Aya projected their history, showing how they had sought knowledge and understanding, always seeking harmony with life and energy around them. They were not conquerors. They were explorers, teachers, and learners. Nora felt awe at the complexity and beauty of their civilization. Yet she also saw why it had ended. A great cosmic disturbance had threatened the planet, forcing the aliens to leave. They had entrusted their knowledge to Aya, hoping that one day someone worthy would come to continue their work. Step by step, Nora moved around the chamber, taking in the displays and projections. Aya followed, matching every motion perfectly. She noticed how the being reacted to her curiosity, subtly guiding her toward the most important areas. It was teaching her, not in words, but by action and connection. Each mirrored movement was a lesson in observation, understanding, and patience. Nora reached a console that displayed biological data, samples of the planet's flora and fauna, preserved and cataloged by the aliens, floated in holographic chambers. She reached out, letting her fingers trace the images of plants and creatures she had never seen. Aya mirrored her interest, focusing on the same specimens. Through this silent dialogue, Nora felt a sense of partnership forming. They were learning together, exploring together, and understanding together. She then noticed a projection of a star map. The aliens had studied the galaxy extensively, marking regions of interest, energy flows, and anomalies. As she examined the map, Aya projected a series of images showing disruptions in space-time, unusual energy surges, and areas of potential danger. Humans had only begun to scratch the surface of such knowledge. Yet here it was, catalogued and studied in detail by beings far older and wiser. Aya's presence seemed to intensify, focusing on the areas of the map that indicated potential threats. Nora realized that the outpost was not only a research station, but also a warning system, designed to prepare someone capable of understanding the universe for challenges that could affect all civilizations. Step by step, she felt the weight of responsibility settling upon her. The knowledge was incredible, but it was also a call to action. She turned toward Aya, wanting to communicate. The being responded immediately, projecting images and emotions directly into her mind. She felt curiosity, intelligence, and trust. There was no fear, no hostility. Aya wanted her to understand, to learn, and to become part of a legacy that had waited decades for someone human to arrive. The connection was deeper than anything she had experienced. She felt as if their minds were synchronized, their thoughts flowing in harmony. Nora began to experiment. She moved her hands over the consoles, manipulating data and images. Aya mirrored her every motion, showing her the correct sequences, helping her understand patterns, and guiding her analysis. Step by step, she realized that Aya was not only a teacher, but also a partner. The alien presence had chosen her, and she had accepted the responsibility willingly and eagerly. As hours passed, Nora felt herself becoming immersed in the knowledge of the outpost. She learned about the aliens' methods of energy manipulation, their understanding of life, and their observations of the universe. Aya projected visions of their research on planetary ecosystems, demonstrating how life could be sustained and protected even in harsh environments. Nora felt inspired. Humans were still young in the galaxy, but with knowledge and guidance, they could achieve great things. She paused to consider the bond forming between herself and Aya. It was unlike any human relationship. There were no words, no gestures, no spoken agreement. Yet there was trust, understanding, and mutual recognition. Step by step, they were learning to work as one. The being mirrored her thoughts and intentions, and she responded in kind. It was a silent partnership that transcended language and species. Nora realized that Aya had been waiting for someone capable of more than survival or curiosity. The being had sought a human who could reflect its purpose, who could understand and act, who could continue the work of the alien civilization. And now, that someone was here. The presence that had once caused fear now felt like an ally, a guide, and a friend. She explored further, discovering rooms filled with complex machines. Some were designed to manipulate energy, others to study biological samples, and some projected intricate maps of the galaxy. Aya guided her attention to specific devices, showing her patterns and connections she would not have noticed on her own. Step by step, she understood that the technology was not just functional, but also a form of communication. The aliens had encoded their intentions and knowledge into the machines, and Aya was the key to unlocking them. Nora approached a chamber filled with a holographic representation of the planet. It rotated slowly, showing valleys, mountains, rivers, and ancient cities. Aya projected additional images, overlaying historical events and ecological changes. Nora could see how the planet had evolved, how life had adapted, and how the aliens had interacted with the environment. She felt a profound respect for the intelligence and care that had gone into every action. Step by step, she moved closer to the holographic planet, and Aya followed. She reached out to interact with the projection, and the planet responded to her gestures. Mountains shifted, rivers flowed, and cities reappeared in holographic detail. She realized that she was not just observing but participating. Aya's guidance allowed her to understand patterns, make connections, and see the world from a perspective far beyond her own. Nora felt a surge of excitement. This was more than discovery. It was transformation. Aya had shown her a way to think, to observe, and to connect. Step by step, she was becoming part of something larger, part of a legacy that had waited decades for a human capable of understanding. She felt a sense of purpose unlike anything she had experienced before. The presence of Aya shifted slightly, as if sensing her excitement and readiness. Nora smiled and extended her hand toward the being. For the first time, she felt a complete sense of unity. Step by step, they had moved from strangers to partners. The space between them, once filled with uncertainty and caution, had vanished. Now, there was only connection, understanding, and shared purpose. Nora whispered softly, "We can do this together." Aya's form shimmered in acknowledgement, a silent affirmation that transcended words. Step by step, the bond between human and alien presence strengthened. The outpost, once silent and abandoned, was alive with purpose again. Knowledge flowed. Between them, trust was formed, and a new chapter of understanding had begun. As she stood beside Aya, Nora realized that the journey was only beginning. The outpost held more secrets, more knowledge, and more challenges. Together, they would uncover them. Step by step, they would learn, grow, and prepare for what lay ahead. Humanity was not alone in the galaxy, and with guidance, courage, and understanding, they could face the mysteries and dangers of the universe. For the first time, Nora felt a sense of hope that extended beyond herself. Step by step, she had connected with Aya, and step by step, she would help bridge the gap between humanity and the universe. The bond was no longer just presence and curiosity. It was understanding, trust, and a shared mission. And in that bond, she found strength, clarity, and a vision of the future that was brighter than anything she had ever imagined. Nora felt the energy of the outpost around her, alive with knowledge, light, and purpose. She moved carefully through the chamber, Aya following, mirroring every step. The bond between them had grown stronger with every movement, every shared thought, and every projection of knowledge. Step by step, Nora realized that this was no longer exploration alone. It was partnership, connection, and a chance to understand something far greater than herself. Aya guided her to a new section of the outpost. The walls were lined with intricate panels that pulsed softly, responding to her presence. Holographic projections appeared as she approached, displaying not only the planet Vera, but the surrounding star systems in unprecedented detail. It was as if the outpost had stored centuries of observation, ready to reveal them to someone capable of understanding. Step by step, Nora moved closer to the projections, examining star systems, planets, and energy flows. Aya mirrored her movements, and together they traced patterns of cosmic energy that humans had only begun to theorize. She felt a surge of awe. The universe was not just vast. It was alive in ways she had never imagined. Energy moved, shifted, and interacted, forming a complex web of life, matter, and power. Nora reached out to touch a projection of a swirling nebula. The display responded, expanding and revealing hidden structures and currents. Aya mirrored her focus, directing her attention to anomalies, points of energy that pulsed with unusual intensity. She realized that these disturbances were dangerous, capable of affecting planets, life forms, and civilizations. Humanity's future depended on understanding them, and this outpost held the key. Aya projected images directly into her mind. She saw ancient alien scientists working to map the galaxy's energy flows, creating systems of observation and control to protect life. Their methods were elegant, precise, and guided by a deep respect for existence. Nora understood that these beings had not sought power or conquest. They had sought preservation, knowledge, and balance. Step by step, she absorbed their philosophy, their wisdom, and their approach to challenges that could threaten countless worlds. She moved toward a console showing biological data, this time with an emphasis on life beyond Vera. Aya projected visions of planets teeming with life, some thriving, others struggling to survive. The aliens had observed countless species, learning how ecosystems functioned and how life adapted to extreme conditions. Nora felt a deep sense of responsibility. Humans were young in the galaxy, yet they had the potential to protect and preserve, to act with wisdom and courage. Aya's presence seemed to emphasize this point, guiding her attention to the connections between life, energy, and survival. Step by step, Nora began to understand the purpose of the outpost. It was not merely a research station. It was a teacher, a guide, and a warning. The aliens had left knowledge behind, not to be hoarded but to be understood, applied, and shared. Humanity had a role to play, and she was the first to step forward. Aya's guidance was precise but gentle, helping her absorb information without overwhelming her. The bond between them was now stronger than ever. Nora paused to consider the implications. The galaxy was vast, filled with mysteries, dangers, and opportunities. Humans had only begun to explore, to understand, and to connect. Aya showed her anomalies in space-time, regions where energy behaved unpredictably and where life could be threatened. Some were natural phenomena, while others were the result of forces that the aliens had been studying for centuries. Step by step, she realized that humans could contribute, learn, and even protect the galaxy if they were willing to understand and act. Aya projected another series of images, this time showing possible futures. One path showed civilizations falling to energy disruptions, worlds destroyed by forces they could not comprehend. Another path showed alliances between species, knowledge shared, and threats mitigated. Humanity, guided by understanding, courage, and empathy, could be a part of the latter. The choice was theirs. Step by step, Nora felt the weight of this knowledge, but also the hope that action and intelligence could make a difference. She moved to another console, this one filled with energy patterns that pulsed like a heartbeat. Aya projected a sequence of steps to manipulate energy safely, to stabilize disruptions, and to preserve life. Nora followed, her movements mirrored by the being beside her. She felt a deep connection, not just to Aya, but to the legacy of the aliens who had built this outpost. Step by step, she was learning not only what to do, but why it mattered. Hours passed as Nora explored the outpost, absorbing knowledge, testing patterns, and learning from Aya. The presence guided her with patience and care, allowing her to make discoveries while offering subtle corrections when necessary. Step by step, she felt her understanding grow. She realized that humans had a unique advantage: creativity, adaptability, and courage. Aya's guidance was helping her see how these qualities could complement the precise, calculated methods of the alien civilization. Together, they could achieve something remarkable. Nora paused to rest near the central pedestal. Aya hovered beside her, a soft glow surrounding its form. She felt the presence of the being like a heartbeat, synchronized with her own. Step by step, she understood the depth of trust forming between them. This was more than guidance. It was partnership, collaboration, and shared purpose. The outpost was alive not just with technology, but with the connection between human and alien intelligence. She reflected on how far they had come together. When she had first entered the outpost, fear had dominated her mind. Step by step, that fear had transformed into curiosity, understanding, and finally trust. Aya had walked with her, mirrored her actions, and shared knowledge in ways no human had ever experienced. Step by step, they had built a bond that transcended words, species, and even time. Nora's thoughts turned to the colony on Vera. She knew that what she was learning here could not remain hidden. Humanity had the potential to protect life, understand the universe, and contribute to something far greater than themselves. Aya had chosen her not only for what she could do, but for what humans could become. Step by step, she realized that she carried responsibility, hope, and possibility in equal measure. The being shifted slightly, its light pulsing as if responding to her thoughts. Nora felt a surge of inspiration. Step by step, she had learned not just from Aya, but from the legacy of the aliens who had built this outpost. She understood their purpose, their philosophy, and their hope for the future.
Humanity could be part of that hope if it acted with intelligence, courage, and empathy. Nora rose from the pedestal and moved toward the holographic star map again.
Aya followed, perfectly synchronized. She traced energy flows, marked points of interest, and projected possible paths forward. Step by step, she began to see how human intuition, creativity, and determination could complement the precise calculations of the aliens. Together, they could protect life, study the universe, and prepare for challenges beyond human imagination. As she worked, she felt a profound sense of unity with Aya. Step by step, they had formed a bond that was unspoken yet complete. Trust, understanding, and shared purpose flowed between them. Nora realized that this was what the aliens had intended all along. They had left Aya not as a tool, but as a guide for someone capable of learning, acting, and leading. Step by step, she understood that she had been chosen, and she accepted that responsibility willingly. Finally, Nora paused and looked around the chamber. Aya hovered beside her, shimmering softly. The outpost, once abandoned and silent, now thrummed with purpose. Step by step, knowledge had been shared, trust had been built, and understanding had been achieved. She felt ready to take the next step, to continue exploring, to apply what she had learned, and to prepare for the future, step by step. Nora and Aya had moved from strangers to partners, from observer and guide to allies. The outpost was no longer just a relic of the past. It was a living testament to connection, intelligence, and hope. And as Nora prepared to delve deeper into the remaining mysteries, she felt a certainty that together, they could face any challenge the universe might present. Step by step, they would continue, learning, growing, and preparing for the incredible journey ahead. Nora stepped out of the outpost onto the surface of Vera. The sun was low in the sky, casting golden light across the landscape. The colony lay ahead, small and quiet, yet it felt alive with possibility. Beside her, Aya shimmered softly, a presence both comforting and powerful. Step by step, they walked together toward the settlement. Each movement was mirrored, a symbol of the bond that had grown between them over the past days. The villagers looked up as they approached. At first, there was fear in their eyes. They had heard stories of the abandoned outpost and the strange energy that surrounded it. But as Nora reached the edge of the settlement, they saw not a threat, but a presence that radiated calm and understanding. Aya hovered gently above the ground, its light reflecting in the awe-filled eyes of the villagers. Nora raised her hand, signaling peace. Aya responded with a subtle wave of energy, a gesture that humans could understand as reassurance. Step by step, she moved into the center of the settlement, Aya by her side. The villagers began to relax. Children stepped forward curiously, reaching out to the shimmering being. Aya mirrored their movements, responding with warmth and patience. For the first time, humans and alien presence shared the same space without fear. Nora began to explain, using simple words and gestures. She told them about the outpost, the knowledge it contained, and the bond she had formed with Aya. She spoke of the aliens who had built the station, their purpose and their hope for life beyond their civilization. The villagers listened, eyes wide, absorbing every word. Aya projected images to help them understand, showing the holographic star maps, the ecosystems, and the energy flows that Nora had studied. Step by step, the settlement began to see what Nora had discovered. Humanity was not alone in the universe. There were forces, civilizations, and knowledge waiting to be understood. And with guidance, courage, and curiosity, humans could become more than they had ever imagined. Aya's presence reinforced this truth, showing them that intelligence, empathy, and patience could bridge the gap between species and between worlds. Nora led them to the edge of the colony, where the terrain dropped into valleys and plains that stretched toward the horizon. She showed them projections of energy anomalies that could threaten life, as well as safe routes and methods to study and stabilize them. Aya guided her, helping humans understand patterns and flows that were invisible without alien technology. Step by step, they learned to see the universe in ways they had never known. The villagers began to participate actively. Engineers, scientists, and explorers stepped forward to assist. Aya mirrored their movements, guiding them gently, correcting mistakes and reinforcing learning. Step by step, Humans began to grasp the complexity and beauty of the knowledge they had been entrusted with. There was no fear, only curiosity, cooperation, and the growing awareness of potential. Nora observed them, feeling pride and hope. This was humanity at its best, learning, adapting, and ready to face challenges beyond comprehension. Step by step, she realized that the bond she had with Aya was no longer exclusive. It was spreading, connecting humans to knowledge, to understanding, and to a vision of the universe where they could act as guardians, learners, and contributors. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the colony, Aya projected a new vision into Nora's mind. She saw not just Vera, but surrounding star systems, planets filled with life and civilizations that had faced dangers similar to those she had learned about. Some had survived, some had fallen. The difference, she realized, was preparation, knowledge, and cooperation. Humans had the chance to be the difference makers, the protectors, and the unifiers of the galaxy. Step by step, she understood that the journey was not ending at the colony. It was only beginning. Aya had been waiting for someone to carry forward this mission, to teach, guide, and protect. That someone was humanity, and she was the first link in a chain that could extend across stars. The thought filled her with purpose. She had not only discovered knowledge, but had begun to unlock the potential of her species. The villagers gathered around, eager to learn, to contribute, and to explore. Nora showed them how to interact with the outpost's technology, how to interpret the holographic projections, and how to use Aya's guidance effectively. Aya mirrored her instructions, demonstrating movements, projecting images, and reinforcing understanding. Step by step, humans began to grasp the universe's complexity, and with that grasp came confidence, creativity, and hope. Nora felt the presence of Aya grow stronger in a comforting way. The being had shared knowledge, guided her learning, and now supported the growth of an entire human settlement. Step by step, the bond had evolved from observer and explorer to teacher and student, and now to partnership and alliance. The outpost, once abandoned, had become a center of connection, learning, and preparation for challenges beyond imagination. As night fell, stars appeared above Vera, brilliant and numerous. Nora stood beside Aya, looking up at the sky. She could see energy patterns, cosmic currents, and anomalies in the distance. She knew there were dangers ahead, but she also knew humans were not alone. With Aya's guidance, their curiosity, courage, and intelligence, they could face the universe with confidence. Step by step, they could explore, learn, and protect. She turned to the villagers, who were now discussing plans, sharing ideas, and experimenting with new technology. Their fear had turned to wonder, their hesitation to action. Step by step, they were becoming more than survivors. They were learners, explorers, and potential protectors of life and knowledge. Nora smiled. This was the future she had hoped for, a future built on understanding, courage, and unity. Aya's presence shimmered warmly beside her, responding to the collective energy of the humans. It was clear that the being's mission was succeeding. Step by step, the bond between species had extended, creating a partnership that could reach far beyond Vera. Humanity had begun to step into its role in the galaxy, not as conquerors but as guardians, learners, and contributors. Nora stepped forward and raised her hand again. This time, the gesture was not only for Aya but for the humans around her. Step by step, she invited them to join, to trust, and to move forward together. The villagers responded, stepping closer, reaching out and mirroring her actions. Aya reflected their movements with gentle waves of energy, reinforcing the sense of unity. Step by step, distance, fear, and doubt vanished. The night sky above Vera seemed to pulse in harmony with the settlement. Stars shimmered, energy flows glimmered faintly, and the presence of Aya filled the air with calm assurance. Step by step, the humans learned not only about the universe but about themselves, their courage, and their potential. They were capable of understanding, connecting, and contributing in ways they had never imagined. Nora turned to Aya and whispered, "We did it." The being responded with a soft shimmer, an acknowledgement of partnership and achievement. Step by step, they had moved from strangers to allies, from observer and explorer to teacher and student, and now to full partnership. The outpost, the settlement, and the humans together formed a new beginning, a bridge to a future where knowledge, courage, and empathy could shape the galaxy. As dawn approached, the first light of a new day spread across Vera. Nora stood at the edge of the settlement, Aya by her side and looked out at the horizon. Step by step, humanity had begun its journey into the wider universe, equipped not only with technology and knowledge but also with the understanding that connection, cooperation, and courage were the greatest tools of all. The wind blew softly across the plains, carrying a sense of possibility. Step by step, the humans prepared to explore, to learn, and to protect. Aya's presence glimmered beside them, a reminder of the lessons learned, the bond formed, and the mission ahead. Together, human and alien intelligence had created a new path, one built on trust, understanding, and unity. Nora took one final step forward, feeling the energy of Aya, the knowledge of the outpost, and the hope of humanity flowing through her. Step by step, the future stretched before them, full of potential, discovery, and opportunity. And for the first time, she felt certain that humans were ready, capable, and worthy to take their place among the stars. Step by step, humanity and Aya walked into the future together, no longer separated by species, fear, or doubt. Step by step, the galaxy opened to them, and the promise of understanding, courage, and unity shone brighter than any star. Step by step, they had come together, and step by step, they would shape the universe with hope, knowledge, and the enduring spirit of human courage.